So I think maybe for the first time, my wife probably came to me after service and said, "Something you want to talk about?"
I think all of us got it.
I know I wasn't the only one, right?
No.
I wasn't the only one.
That's funny, man.
No.
Did you have an extra conversation?
Yeah, we talked a little bit a few days later. So this was, I think it was yesterday morning. I think we were eating some breakfast and talking about things, especially after the deeper dive. And so yeah, there's some.
So y'all let it simmer a little bit.
We let it simmer. You know, you gotta let it simmer because we watched things at different times. So I think I got up Sunday morning and watched some of the messages on that Sunday morning. She watched it on Facebook a little bit later. So you know, catching it at different times.
Yeah.
But the stage was set.
Absolutely. But we're processors too, so we got to take some time to process it. And I just got the question this morning. This is Thursday, so Thursday morning I got that question. Hey, is there anything that connected that we need to talk about? So absolutely.
Yeah, that's the fire you lit. But hey, that's what we're talking about. Hey, welcome everybody to another edition of the Blueprint Leadership Podcast. As you know, we're here every week to really share the simple truths of the Word of God to help you grow your leadership and actually just better your everyday walking around life. And this past week, you know, we just came off of Father's Day, and Pastor Bryan had a message that was so powerful. We're still in the Till Death Do Us Part series, and this particular message was called Man Down. Man Down. Now, as you heard, you really sparked some things. Was that your expectation?
Yeah, so, you know, I would say that's definitely what God wanted to have happen. So much so that he even said, you know, in introducing the message, to introduce it as something that is designed to spark conversations.
Okay.
You know, and so, no, I believe that exactly how God wanted it to go is exactly how
That's how
it was accomplished.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Awesome. And anticipating this conversation and this discussion, what I was so excited about is, you know, we know that the Word of God is applicable to every part of our lives. And then from our purpose here at the Blueprint, looking at things from the lens of leadership. And so when you hit personally with truths like that, obviously it makes you reflect inwardly. But to be able to then look at it as to how it impacts, you know, your various leadership roles, whether it's at the house, it's at the company you work for, the business that you own. Yeah. When you think about all that truth from a leadership perspective, what jumps out at you as something that you think our leaders can really grasp from where we are with that?
Yeah, I think kind of where we started is understanding what is in somebody will determine what comes out of them. You know, I think a lot of times as leaders, we are excited about the opportunity to help someone grow and help them move forward in what they're doing. And we don't oftentimes, like you said, when you were talking about communications, right? We don't oftentimes have the necessary communications to discover what is in this person that I'm committed to wanting to move, committed to wanting to see them move forward. Because eventually what's in them will come out of them. And a lot of times we get so excited about the growth opportunities, the leadership opportunities, that it isn't until down the road we discover, wait a minute, there's conflict here. And then we discover, no, there was something in this person before we even started this journey that we are now seeing.
And I think a lot of leaders miss that from the beginning, because say what's in them will come out, right? Coming out is typically, that's the result that you're looking for, whether it's a team that you're in charge of, whether it's a business that you run, you're trying to get certain results, right? Yeah. But taking the approach of trying to get those results without ever focusing in on what's in the people that you're actually dealing with is almost counterproductive.
Yes.
So, and I know Alex is here with us again, and you're in corporate right now and actually get to train leaders. Is that a part of training that you focus on, is really to get people to see beyond just numbers, beyond results, beyond the surface when they're dealing with people?
Yeah, and it's a necessity. You know, your company, your organization, ministry, it can't grow without the success of the people growing within the company. You know, so when we think about any industry, if we don't take time to find out what motivates that person.
Yeah.
Right? So I talk to people all the time and I say, you can't always assume money is their motivation.
Right.
Yeah.
So think about, there's going to be people that work for companies that are on your staff. This could be their second career. They could have already retired from somewhere. They could have had a military career. So they already have a paycheck coming in.
Right.
Money is not their thing.
Right.
But they don't want to sit at home. They want to connect with people. They want to be around others.
Right.
And so if we don't find out what makes that person tick, what gets them out of the bed every day.
Right.
You know, for some, it could be providing for the family. Like I said, relational, interpersonal skills. It could be just a stopgap. Like, I just need a job temporarily, and I got something else on the coals, right? Finding out what is in that person, what motivates that person is going to be the key to success. Because we're really dealing with people at the end of the day. It's not metrics. It's not reports. Because whether it's your customer, who's a person, or your employee, who's a person, you're dealing with people. It's the people business at the end of the day.
Every business is a people business.
Alex, how would you train a manager in making room for an employee? What do you call it? A subordinate?
Associates. It could be associates, employees.
That you see that they have some things in them that won't add to productivity. Like, is there anything in your training that prepares a manager to make room for things that you don't want to deal with, or that won't make the associate productive?
I think as you start to get to know that associate or that employee, you find out where their strengths are, where the weaknesses are. And if those weaknesses are so large where it outweighs their strengths, one or two things can happen. We can have conversations and we can talk about, is there a way to develop those deficiencies, right? So it could be a skill. Maybe it's will or skill. We got to figure that out. But it could come down to maybe you're on the wrong team. Like, before we go to the extreme and say you're in the wrong company, maybe you're on the wrong team. Let's exhaust that option first. Let's see. Once we've trained you, like, this is just not working. The level of your competency for that area is just not where it needs to be. Let's try this team. Maybe this team works a little better for you. Now, once we've exhausted multiple options, maybe you are at the wrong company. And we have to be okay with that. Because at the end of the day, yes, we're trying to get the results. Yes, we're trying to meet those different metrics and sales goals and things like that. But I don't want to jump the gun too far. And sometimes managers can get to the point of, I'm just frustrated with this individual. Let's just get rid of them. All right, pump your brakes. Have we done our due diligence to find out, is there anything we can do from a training standpoint? Is there anything we can do from an upskilling? Like, maybe they need to be partnered with someone to get that skill. Maybe you're not the right teacher. I mean, think about that.
I want to go there because what I've had most success with in my own career and with training others is actually focusing on that people approach up front, right? Before we even get to whatever the results are that you're trying to get, to even have the right approach to that, you're dealing with people here. Because what I love about the things that you share with this message that we'll get into in a lot more detail is the motivation of an individual, can be a long-term thing. Like you said, he has plans for why he's at this job. But the kind of things we're talking about now that came out of this message is things that happen from day to day. When I'm talking about your long-term goal, something happened to you yesterday and you brought it to work. So now me and my metrics are like totally secondary to what you care about right now. And as a leader, if I'm not able to discern that, then we're going to have some issues. And you went into offense and talked about so many different kinds of offense. And those are the kind of things that leaders are facing on a daily basis and not even aware. You're trying to look at numbers, and this person has a lot more going on than you think about. So is that what you were thinking about as far as when you were trying to get us to realize how offense shows up?
And I think that what Alex was saying is so true, right? Is thinking that money is always the motivator. And understanding that, man, some people came to work searching for significance. And they're looking every day. I mean, first of all, everybody wants to feel significant. And so they came to work because of something may have happened at home yesterday. And so then today they walked into work like needing to feel significant. they just wanted to do something that meant something. You know, that could have been spurred on by a song they were listening to in the car before they stepped out so they stepped into the workplace and they were feeling insignificant, right? And so they came, and today money ain't the motivator. Today feeling significant is the motivation. And the reason why we have to be more versed or more diverse in looking at something is saying, okay, offended people are limited people.
Yeah, that's good.
If there is a limitation in what they're able to do right now, there most often is something that is holding them down. And there's some big things. Significance, not money, significance. And just saying, like, coming to that person and say, hey, man, you know, when you do this today, you're going to make a difference for us. How? This is how. All of a sudden, that person who you were trying to give more money to, or that person that you were simply mad at, the moment they felt significant, right? You know, they sparked on. You know, of course, we went through some other ones, but I would say those are the factors where people felt the word looking for significance.
And so, you know, with that being one of the areas of offense, to your point, Pastor Lamar, and how do you approach that, or how does it show up? I'm sure you've heard the phrase, what gets rewarded gets repeated, right? So a leader's approach to dealing with their people can either produce or squelch offense and significance. You know, what type of actions are you rewarding at work? You know, this guy came in with an attitude, but he was on time. Does anybody notice that? You know, he's sad, he's depressed, but he's still getting his work done regardless. You know, do you recognize that? Do you mention that? So the people approach to the people, you know, overriding, so to speak, the task-driven approach, puts a leader in that mindset to be mindful of those kind of things, and then you won't miss it. You know, you'll be able to contribute to the significance that's a need, even though they're not able to voice it, just because you have a people approach to leadership.
And to your point, a leader who can't decipher between what's going on with their own employee, their own associate, is a leader who's so self-absorbed. Is selfish at the bottom, at the root of it. Because if a person comes in, you can't notice a simple social cue that their face is frowning, and you're only thinking about, hey, get on task. All right, you're 5 minutes late. Let's go. Slow down. As a leader, we have to be able to slow down enough to recognize what's going on with this person. Right? If a smile's on their face, that universally means, okay, they're happy. If they got a frown, that doesn't mean they're happy anymore. Something's wrong.
Something's
right?
Something's wrong.
And so
what things exist in your work environment that I guess create opportunities for those social cues to be addressed?
First of all, you know, leaders have to know that those social cues exist. So leaders need to know that it's not all about you. Leaders need to know that without this team, there is no you. Because the truth is, if you didn't need them, you wouldn't have hired them. Obviously, you needed some skill set, some talent that they brought to the table to grow your business, make your area, your department, whatever it is, better. So when we think about conversations, being able to have a simple conversation that says, hey, let's go have a conversation in the office real quick. And not make every conversation in the office a negative.
There we go.
Take time to just say, hey, let's come to the office. And you know, most employees are going to be thinking, what did I do? What happened? And when they sit down, just say, hey, yesterday when you did X, Y, and Z, I appreciated what you did. Be specific.
And that's the key, right? Because many people will ask a question like that, like, what kind of things do I put in place to make sure? It's like, no, how are you using the things you've got? You know, every business, everybody says a leader needs to meet with his people. You know, you call it one-on-ones, whatever. But every one of those meetings are not about numbers, because those are people. You know, that person looked down this morning. I have a one-on-one schedule with them today. You see what's going on with them. You know, so it's how you're using the tools that you have with a people focus.
And you know, some things that and this is difficult. I'm gonna put one out there that's difficult, but man, if we're talking about significance, and you talk about just, I have taken losses, as a leader for the sake of significance, and had to take a longer term picture. I always tell people this, you don't deal with people based upon what they're currently doing. You deal with people based upon where you believe y'all are going together.
Right.
That completely changes your interactions. And so if I'm dealing with somebody that I know is a forever piece of what we're doing, how I respond is different. And so this is the loss that I've often taken. I would suggest that any leader would take, knowing that you're dealing with someone that you believe is long-term, is be careful of the amount of things that you finish without somebody. If you may not always be able to start together, but if you continue the pattern of finishing things without someone, you're perpetuating a feeling of insignificance to that person. Right? And then the way you respond when they don't do. Right? What I mean by take losses, sometimes I will take the loss if it shows you that without you it can't get done. Knowing that I could have easily have called in a substitute, knowing that we could have easily moved it forward without you. But in that moment, it's like, no, this L in this moment is not going to be as significant as taking an L and losing you long term. But if we finish this without you, all it's going to make you feel as though we don't need you.
Correct.
And it's impossible. I don't care what nobody say. If you continue to finish things without somebody, you're not going to be able to maintain a conversation of their significance. Because you didn't need them to finish anything.
Correct. Correct. And significance is so huge. And, we don't use the word often. But that feeling, that need is there.
Everybody wakes up wanting to feel significant.
Exactly. And leaders, you have to lead with that. I used to have a tactic that I do every time I go to a new situation, right? A new company or on a new team. I will let them know. I know on paper everything looks like you work for me. But in actuality, I work for you. I'm here to be a resource, to help you grow, to help you accomplish everything that you're here for. And with that, we all accomplish together. I worked for a company who had it sounded really complicated, but one of their values was inclusive meritocracy.
Wow.
And but all that means is we don't win till we all win. That means I can't be sitting over here.
I'm laughing, right? Inclusive meritocracy. That word alone excluded a lot of us. I don't. You know what I'm saying? I get where you're going. But the very thing you're saying excluded me. Made me fill out. Y'all know what that means? I know.
That's exactly why I put it in our terms.
You drew a line in the sand with your. That's hilarious.
Right. But even try to understand that, right? And say, what does that really mean? All that means is we don't win till we all win. That's what that means. My boss used to say, how you doing? They're like, good. How you people doing? I mean, just everything about your action
So
made it about everybody.
And that's the
not about you.
That I'm asking. So not necessarily a poster on the board or something like that, but that exists in this environment, which creates space for managers to deal with their associates in a way that's going to be more productive.
Correct.
Just because I asked that question.
And leaders are responsible for that
Exactly.
Very true.
That's right.
That's the thing. So as you're training, I'm sure you have to address those kind of things.
And we were talking about offense and things like that. We also have to think about, yes, offenses are going to show up, but you don't have to be the source of it as the leader. That's a choice.
Right.
I had a leader once that I reported to, and he said something to the effect of, with some employees doing some things, he said, I guess I have to be a Grinch. And I said, that's a choice.
That's a choice.
I literally told him that's a choice. So if you want to be the leader that's growing your team, growing your people, you have to extract the mindset of you're so focused, you're so driven, you're so ambitious that your approach to an individual could be offensive. You could be
That's one of the things. Go ahead.
I would say too, right? Because, and I've seen this, so here at the church, we've had people come from different backgrounds, talking about what's in you will come out of you, right? Your approach has to match what you're looking to repeat. And I say that because we have people who were in the military come be a part of the ministry.
Yeah.
Well, there's a huge transition of how you deal with people in the military versus how you deal with people in the church, right?
Yeah.
One of the things is there is a level of intensity that comes with this, right? Because in the military, you are talking life and death. Like your commander may have cultivated an atmosphere of like, one strike you're out, because guess what? You shoot bombs.
Exactly.
Right.
But if you bring one strike you're out to the church culture, that counteracts our call to forgiveness.
Right.
Like we cultivate forgiveness. I understand this, right? So it's like even being, and it goes back to the first thing you said, like, you have to come in as a leader being sensitive to the people.
Be sensitive.
Yeah.
Right? Like if somebody came from a military background, then you know there's going to have to be a process of which, okay, you know, that was absolutely how that leader should have held down the ground to a bunch of fighter pilots who have nuclear bombs strapped to the side of their jets, right? You can't be like, I accidentally dropped it. No!
Very true.
So from day one, we cultivate atmospheres, mistakes
cannot happen.
How
do you say forgiveness in the corporate setting?
How do you say forgiveness?
Yeah, I mean, do you is that a word that you use? You go around forgiving each other, or how does that sound?
We don't, but at the end of the day, there has to be some leniency towards people's growth.
Okay.
Right? So on day one, as we talked about before, everyone starts as a liability. So technically, you could be breaking a policy on day one. I'm going to just fire you on day one.
Right.
But that's not our end goal, right?
Let me put that. So from day one, you set an allowance.
That's a good, You have some buffer here, right?
Yeah.
And it needs to be in place, because if not, then we go right back to the task-driven versus the people-driven orientation of your staff.
Correct.
If I'm truly invested in you as a person, and I'm taking my life and I'm investing it in you, it's not for the intent of, hey, let's get rid of you.
Right.
On the slightest thing you do wrong, let's get rid of you. No, let's talk. Let's figure out, was it because of a lack of knowledge? Was it a lack of skill? Is there anything I can fill the gap to help you make a better decision next time? Or are you just that person who just loves making bad decisions? Okay, we have a process for that too. You know, but that can't be my first approach. And to your point with military, we hire a lot of ex-military. I mean, we have a whole policy. There's a whole promise that we make for military families. But there's a part that they bring in that is a great asset to the company. I mean, they're disciplined, they're focused. I mean, there's so many qualities. Oh my gosh, it's the best. But as Colonel used to say, brick and velvet.
Right.
Like
the velvet brick.
The brick is great. We need a lot of that stability from what brick brings us. But we're dealing with people. We're not dealing with enemies. We're dealing with people. Those are customers.
That's a good point.
If those customers don't come back, guess what? We got a business.
Or your employees are not your enemies.
Exactly. Our employees are not our enemies.
Nobody came to work today going, I'm going to destroy this company.
The majority of our associates are not waking up saying, I want to do a bad job. They're not sitting around plotting how they can destroy the company. Most of our associates are employees in most companies want to do a great job.
I have that conversation all the time. Like, guys, you like 90% of people they may have ended up there, but they didn't start trying to be destructive. Something offended them. Something happened here. Like,
if you think about the interview. The day of the interview, everyone's smiling. Come on now, this is we up here hugging. This is great. Like, you want a job, we need your skills. This is perfect. So how does it get so far off? So when we think about offense, no one just ends up there accidentally.
No.
Right? when people's feelings are hurt, we got to think about that. People have feelings.
Yeah.
You can't just say anything you want to say the way you want to say it without expecting some sort of result that comes from it, positive or negative.
Correct.
And so as a leader, you said sensitivity. We have to be sensitive to what is someone going through.
Yeah.
Maybe today I can say it very direct.
That's the word, leading with compassion. But when you say, terms like unforgiveness, because it seems like, oh, that's not something you would say in a corporate atmosphere. And I think a lot of the things, I tend to look at them like backwards sometimes, but what seems like a lack of forgiveness is often still a communication gap, right? To where leaders are not effective with communication with things that set right expectations, that lay out proper agreement, that everybody's on the same page. So when something happens, you feel like, oh man, you just cutthroat. Like, no, we talked about that, we agreed upon that. So, I was reminded of a point you made in the message when you said, a lot of times guys want to have a conversation with their wife, right? And they get to the point to where, she either kind of tears up or she starts getting sad, and you're like, oh, okay, I don't think I want to go there.
Let me back up.
Pull back because there's a potential of some negative part of this conversation that we have to deal with.
Right.
Well, leaders can get caught in that same trap.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You got all the good, you putting all the wonderful on the table, but no, you need to, part of that brick part is to lay out some real expectations, which if everybody's on the same page, win together, like you called it, it's a lot more clear and doesn't feel like all of a sudden when something hits the wall, now you cut my throat. It's like, no, man. But that's a communication gap that prevents that from happening.
I'm convinced. I'm convinced that the only way this works, forgiveness has to be it has to be a mindset or some things have to be in place way before the offense or the fault ever happens. So I'm trying to picture what does that look like in a corporate setting.
Pastor Bryan has had some outside jobs, right? Outside the church. And it was just this plain. We believe in giving second chances. So I said,
there you go.
They didn't use the word forgiveness. They just said, we believe in giving second chances. And people connect with, yeah, you're right, we should give a second chance. And it was just that simple, though. We believe in giving second chances. And it allowed there to be, a sensitivity to people. It allowed there to, which man, people feel significant when they know that they can get a second chance. Now they would tell you you're on your second. They didn't have. They weren't practicing 70 times 7.
No, that wasn't in the rule book.
But you got a second chance.
And
as you talk about values, often in your teaching, that becomes the guardrail, for the decisions you make. Because when you say, what does that look like? Everything isn't written down. That may be the only thing on paper, but it guides your actions, it guides your approach, to how you manage your people because of those values.
It's a universal truth is what you're really saying. Because whether it's in business, whether it's in family and business and leadership and parenting are so parallel. I use so many examples from family when I'm teaching leaders, and I learn stuff in my leadership training that I take home. Because it's so parallel. And think about in a family unit, forgiveness is a foundational element. Because you have kids that are growing. You have husband and wives that are developing and growing, changing over time, maturing. We got to have some forgiveness in place, because if not, then the cutthroat approach is not going to be beneficial to growth. Right? So in business, it's the same way. I hired you on day one. I knew you weren't perfect when I hired you. There's no way for you to be perfect. You just showed up. And even if your resume has a litany of things that you've done, it still doesn't mean that on day one you are perfected, an employee or an associate of that new company. You're learning. You're going to make mistakes. We have to have that grace, that forgiveness built in, because if we don't, then leaders are just turnover.
I heard someone.
I hired you, I fired you.
I heard someone recently say that progress doesn't stop because the offense happened. It's because forgiveness never showed up. That's what ends the progress. Nobody's willing to forgive.
And think about the value that leader is placing on an employee. If they do one thing wrong, I'll just replace you. I'll get somebody else. what are you communicating to that person or even the rest of your
people
team?
watching.
No significance.
Right?
The folks
no
watching.
significance.
No
whatsoever.
significance.
Yeah, that's what
I'll just get another one of you.
Right.
And one other thing that I got from, just in how the message impacts us, right? And a certain thing hits you and you start to understand, say, offense or the root of offense. But often we leave it like right there. You know, we're in leadership positions and we recognize how things hit us, but we don't allow it to be applied to the people that we're leading, right? So when we start talking about offense, it's like, you know, what they got to be offended about. You know, they get paid, they get this, they got benefits.
Yeah, right.
It's like, you know how those personal things tear you up? You know how easy you get offended and have to fight through that? You know, if you're not an effective communicator or just not even recognize that, look, I'm dealing with people here on a daily basis and recognize that that has to be a part of everything I do. And, you know, that's why I said I love just taking, you know, points that you make that are just personal, but they apply to every aspect of your life.
Yeah, and I think that's why, right? You know, we could have just stopped at offense, and everybody knows what offense means, right? But I believe the sensitivity comes is when we actually start to understand that there's different types. Like say, we went over 3. But truthfully, there's more types.
Yeah.
There's more types of offense. And someone say, well, why is that important? Is because, man, you know what forgiveness means. Forgiveness means that I do recognize what happened, right? But in light of even knowing what happened, there's just so much healing that comes from someone seeing and knowing that you're aware right where the problem was.
Right.
And I believe that is a lot of times what keeps people from getting to that full state of reconciliation or getting to that full state of being to progress because the offense happened, right? Because that big thing happens that you never want to be in the category of is, we moved forward, but it was swept under the rug.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Wow. And the sweeping of the rug is when you decided not to categorize what actually took place.
Right.
Yeah.
When you actually decided not to say, no, I felt rejected. You know, and that was the point of the message, is to say, no, there was rejection, there was insignificance, it was I was insulted. Like it wasn't just that you did me wrong. No, did me wrong was the category that what happened fit in. But man, it's a and that's where, man, you know,
that's good.
Something happens, and it's not even about the strategy to get out, right? But something happens when we connect and you know that someone felt your pain.
Yeah.
And that's where, I know you were going there, Deke, so I'm going to keep you going there, right?
Okay.
That's where it's like that tear that you keep trying to hide needs to come forth. You know, and it's like you're expecting someone to change when they don't even know they hurt you. And especially leaning on the man category, right? Man, that facade that you put up is the very thing that is keeping you in this down position. I was talking to a young man about this, right? And he was like, oh man, you know, that was good, that was great. And I asked him a simple question because he was hurt. I was like, has your girlfriend ever seen you cry? He was like, absolutely not. I was like, well, let me help you out, right? Let me help you out, right? I said, you know, I'm not trying to call you out, but just a general question. Have you ever did something that caused your girlfriend to cry? He said, yeah. I said, while you were doing the thing, before she cried, how did you feel about the thing you were doing? He was like, you know, I knew it was wrong, but, you know, whatever. I said, but once you saw her cry, what you felt inside of you is you would do everything within your ability not to ever repeat it again. Not because you gave a strategy to how you weren't going to. You just then in that moment were moved by compassion by what took place, that you would never, ever do this again because you could connect with what the pain was. And I believe that that's a part of leadership that gets so greatly overlooked is the importance of even the people you're leading seeing that you're human.
Yeah,
very true.
Seeing that,
absolutely.
Man, no, like the same way you went home and you had a rough day, I had a rough day, man. We didn't have a good day yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I'm not this robot. I'm not this machine. None of y'all are machines, right? We all are sensitive. We all have things that, you know, I don't want to keep going, right? I want to keep this around the table, but y'all just stop me at any point. But it's jump in, please.
No, you're right on point.
But it's so important because leaders have been naturally you get positioned in this place of like of Teflon.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't let that be what divides you from people that you have to lead. And sometimes it's good for them to see that, no, like the same way we all just took an L, I took an L too. Right? You know, exactly. in our own way. And it builds a unity. It builds a, man, I'm here for you. I don't know how many times I've like you said it earlier, right? Just moments that we didn't know were going to be the growing points become the growing points. And, you know, I was sitting in moments where just being honest with the people whom, you know, I'm responsible for leading and saying, you know, I'll just use he said it all the time. Like he created like the script, right? He was like, man, like if you're wrong, just make another decision.
Right.
And he always led this church by saying, like, man, if I miss God, I'll be the first one to tell you. Right? Like let's not get so caught up in this facade that we become insensitive to the people we were called to leave. Because the moment they think that you're this robot who can't be brought down, right? They're gonna feel like he's not gonna feel any pain I have. Like I'm not gonna communicate with him. He don't even, that man can't even feel cold in the middle of a freezer, right?
There you go. There you go. And then you talk about Pastor Lamar's question keeps coming up because I think that's what people want to know. Like, what does that look like in your business? You know, what does that look like in a corporate situation? And I just keep getting reminded of, we talked about being me-centered first of all, right? And you got to be all this, but it's another communication challenge because a person. I'm thinking about in every company, you know, they have some kind of feedback system, right? 360 feedback, you call it, you know, a lot of different things. But not being able to receive that feedback, you know, also probably the same person is not able to give appropriate feedback.
Correct.
And so they can never get to the point to where they're authentic enough to then be able to connect and relate the way you're talking about. And I know you guys have to teach that.
Because feedback it's a necessary component of anyone's growth. It will be the equivalent of seeing you walking towards a cliff with no parachute.
Correct.
And I'm not honest with you and say, hey, you might want to get a parachute because you're about to go off the cliff. I'm just going to sit back and watch you fail. Or what's the point?
I just keep going off the cliff every week.
Every week, right?
Because I can't allow anybody to share with me where I'm failing because I got to stay here.
It's about creating that culture. It's a two-way street. Feedback is a two-way street. I'm not, just because I'm the manager doesn't mean I'm the only one giving the feedback. I have to also model what does feedback look like when I'm getting it.
Correct.
Because if I am always offended, like, who do you think you are talking to me?
Exactly.
How about you go do something? Or even the fear of, I'm not going to share this feedback because all you're going to do is throw it back in my face. Well, you're not doing it.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So, and that could be in family or business. I believe that as we create the right culture, where you are looking at me as a real person, even though I'm the manager, and I look at you as a real person, guess what? I'm going to have a bad day too. And if I've done the due diligence in encouraging you and getting you through all of your different moments, when I finally do have mine, guess what? The team is going to be there to lift me up. You know, there's many a times where an associate said, hey, you all right? You good?
Exactly.
Now, I could have gone out of 360 days, 359 of them, I'm on point. But I got a day. I'm having a day. Those are those moments where I want somebody to say, hey, you good? You all right? Versus, finally. I'm going to let you have one of these days too.
Right. The opposite.
And I'm going to let you crash and burn, you know?
Finally, you're on fire.
Finally.
I'm gonna sit back
you know what I'm going through, huh? Because the truth is, when you say you take those L's, the leader takes a bigger L. Because no matter what you feel at the employee level, guess what? It's heavy at the top. And depending on if there's someone above you, well, in regards to ministry, you got to answer to God, right?
Yeah.
That's as heavy as it gets.
And I don't know how many times, to the point you said, where I've run into people who the leader doesn't even communicate that. Man, the pressure I'm actually communicating is a response to the pressure that's been put on me, right? And a lot of times, and it's not about like having a pity party about it,
right.
But it is cultivating an atmosphere where we all have expectations.
Correct.
Like we're all living under an expectation, and we're all having something that we're having to live up to.
We're all accountable,
and we're all being held accountable. Right. I didn't make this up. This was given to me.
And when you have established that kind of safe environment, like you're talking about. People recognize that, they buy into that, and they're looking out for you too. They understand the pressure that's on you. And again, they're not waiting for the gavel to fall on you. They're there. We're all in it together. We all win together. And that's the kind of environment that a compassionate leader says.
And then, like I say in the moment, like how did you respond? How did you respond when the expectation wasn't met? Were the only people who took L's are the people who report to you, or did you join in the L?
Exactly.
Sometimes you have to take an L. Even when you didn't take an L, so that they can understand we take L's together.
Quite frankly, leaders take L's for people that they don't even know they're taking L's. The compassionate leaders understand, you know what? I can take this L, and everybody else can be good. That'll help us move forward better. And that's just what leaders do.
And it takes a mature leader to feel that pressure or even the result of something not working out correctly, and be able to filter it correctly to the people that are reporting to you. They might not need to know the full extent of how this thing blew up. Can a mature leader be able to take that, filter it, so that they can still be motivated to continue? And then you say, okay, I'll sit with this L a little bit longer and feel the brunt of this L more than because they might not be able to handle this particular weight today.
Again, that's recognizing you're in a people business. And I want to bring this into a landing by just kind of landing where you were, because all of this, appropriate, effective communication by the leader, being able to accept feedback, right? Being able to communicate authentically with each other puts us in that place to be able to do something that I don't think a lot of people do nearly enough. And you said it, was to look back, to reflect. You've been telling us all year long. Is this working? Was this good? Was this bad? Was this whatever? Without that open communication channel, without being able to get feedback from various people, you don't know. You got this limited viewpoint of, was this good? It was good for me. How did it work for them? And I know that's kind of where you brought us back to, the importance of that reflection.
And of course we started there because everybody knows, and we're gonna go through from the spiritual side, right? The amount of things that were just new that we started to dive into, spiritually, we learned more about what grace means. We learned more about gender roles and gender equality. We learned there's things that we're just starting to be explored and we're learning more about. But if we don't stop and have a point of reflection and say, okay, what did this do as far as our overall goal of what we've been called to do, then man, you could be perpetuating something or made a change to something that wasn't good, right? And what that is so much a part of any type of management leadership role, because you are the one who are responsible for the changes that happen and the administration of changes that take place. That if you are a deadbeat leader if you don't do reflection. I don't know another way to say it, right?
That's
your
good
team
enough.
Probably is so annoyed by you if you never take a moment to reflect on how a thing you changed actually turned out.
Correct.
right? Like you can't forever keep pressing towards the goal that you. So I can guarantee you this.
Yeah.
Leader, if you changed 10 things last year, not all 10 are working right.
That's right.
Exactly.
And it's not because you ain't worked it.
Yep.
It's because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But if you don't slow down and reflect, listen to your employees and find, you will never know.
Yeah.
Right? Like
know.
you will never know. And that's kind of where we started with the man down is it's like, wait a minute. This man ain't get down by himself.
Yeah.
As we survey the culture, it was a group effort.
Yeah. And there's a fence growing everywhere.
Everywhere.
And you have no idea.
Yeah.
But that is such an important part of being a compassionate leader.
Yeah.
Being a leader who effectively communicates. And I heard
not afraid to be wrong.
There you go.
You're right all the time.
Man, people keep throwing bricks at you because you present yourself like a brick wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
They
good.
keep just throwing
That's
hard
good.
stuff because you
present yourself like a brick wall.
So people keep throwing bricks at you.
And that's the only way they know to communicate with a brick wall. To throw stuff at it. But that's so powerful. Yeah. That's so powerful, man. And just, again, the simple truth, we're in the people business. Yeah. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're in the people business. You have to always realize that. Yeah, man.
I feel like I had to put the other side of this, right?
What's up?
Because a lot of people are trying to, everybody wants to, a hot topic is, my culture is toxic, right? That's a hot topic.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Hot topic.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But no one really understands how to rightfully identify a toxic environment. Let me give you a clue just based on this conversation. Okay. If me expressing who I am results in a lowering of who I am, that's toxic. No one should feel as though if I express my true feelings, then response is you lower who I am. It's like if Deke came to me and said, hey, I just want to tell you honestly how I'm feeling. If I take that conversation and lower, he came to me just wanted to be open and honest. If I then say, based upon what you say, if I then say, man, I just don't even respect that man no more. Hello, leader. You're perpetuating a toxic culture. You're saying that honesty and openness is not allowed here. Right? If, and that is, you want to know if you're in a toxic culture? If someone expressing what they feel and how they think results in how you reevaluate their character because this person was just trying to be honest. That's toxic.
See, and that's why we want to connect these things. That's why we don't want to just leave it on Sunday and you don't know how to walk it out Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Because the other end of that, okay, you're the toxic leader who did that to me when I just tried to be honest with you. Pick a category. I feel rejected. I'm insulted. I feel insignificant. Pick a category. You just perpetuated all this offense that you're being taught about in your everyday walking around toxic leadership style. So this stuff is real and it's every day.
Because no leader wants to hear that their environment is toxic, but then you constantly lower openness and honesty. You constantly reject it. You constantly see it as weakness, right? Like, man, the moment you opened up, man, that's a weak man. Boom. Thank you.
There you go. And your values on the wall probably say our people are everything.
Exactly.
Well, man, what a whew. I know we could go on, but we will be back next week. So here, guys, just a reminder of just how potent the Word of God is to your everyday walking around life and to your leadership. You are in leadership positions. You're responsible for people. We're stewards for all that God has called us to do with the people that's within our influence. So take this word, and I hope this conversation helps for you to be able to just dive in. By all means, send us comments, send us questions that we can dive into as we continue this series on a weekly basis. Share the podcast, follow the podcast. Make sure you don't miss a single episode because Pastor's on fire. He never comes down. He just keeps going up. So we look forward to coming back with you next week. Alex, thanks so much, man, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
We love it. Pastor Lamar, appreciate you, sir. And Pastor Bryan, keep bringing the fire, man.
Yes, sir.
Keep bringing the fire. And we'll see you next week on the Blueprint Leadership Podcast.